Hey everyone, welcome to Data Leaders episode 10. Let's get into it. Okay, hi everyone. I just wanted to start out with a channel update. So, complicated life we lead. The last couple of weeks I haven't been able to do as many videos as I would have liked, and ultimately I had to delay one really important interview. So unfortunately that won't be happening now until sometime in May. So we're a little bit behind really with the content production. So I apologize for that. And there's also another reason for that. I'm going to be moving house in the next few weeks. Actually, it's probably about it's at the end of May, actually. But what that means is ultimately in order to organize stuff, it's pretty complicated because we're going back to two different locations. The reality is some of the stuff needs to move earlier than other stuff, so I won't go into it. But ultimately, all of this stuff around me needs to be collapsed and boxed up, and it needs to go a little bit earlier than we're moving, so probably 2 weeks time. So because of that, we'll probably do one more video, and then there's probably going to be one or two more videos, and then there's probably going to be a bit of a content gap because I'm going to be moving, and then when I move into the new place, then we need to set all this stuff up again. So it takes time. It's not straightforward. So I will try and do a few handheld stuff and less static stuff in the meantime, as much as I possibly can. And we may well experiment during that period of time with a little bit of live stuff if we can, if time and technology permits, because realistically, I think I need a lot of the stuff around me to be able to do that properly. Anyway, just to let you know, you may see less content over the coming weeks than perhaps we would like, or perhaps you're used to. Okay. Now, this week, what are we going to be covering? So, first off, I'm going to do an in-depth, not an in-depth, but a reasonably in-depth review of a conference that I attended this week, which I thought was really good, at least from a high-level messaging perspective. I'll give you the download of that. And then we have two articles based around acquisitions, but one actually does a pretty good deep dive of the data market right now, which I think is useful and valuable content for you. So that's it, just 3 items this week. Let's get into the content right now. Okay, before getting into the content, guys, I just want to ask you to do a few things. First of all, please like and subscribe if you get content value from what we produce every week on this channel. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Tick the little bell so as you are advised when we put new content up. Generally speaking, there's a much bigger lag now between when we post content onto YouTube and onto our website versus when it actually arrives on LinkedIn. So if you're subscribed, then you get it probably around 4 or 5 days earlier than everybody else. So definitely worthwhile you subscribing and ticking the little bell so as you know when we produce new content. The other thing worthwhile doing, so as you start to get some of the written content that we're starting to produce now, is go over to the website dataleadrs.com. That's Leadrs, just like this YouTube channel, and sign up for the newsletter updates. So that way you will receive updates when there are new blogs posted, and when there's any other news around the channel. That's the channel through which we advise and send out notifications through people that are subscribed to the mailing list. So make sure you do that as well. It'll be really useful for you to do to stay in touch with what's going on. So let's get into the Graph AI World Conference or World Summit, which was essentially led by Tiger Graph with a number of sponsors. So it was a really good, well-managed online conference. And there were a number of keynotes, actually I think three keynotes at the beginning of the conference, which were useful, some a little bit difficult to understand, but I think there's still time for you to get over to the Graph AI Summit website, which I'll create a link in the description below for you. And I think you can sign up and still get access to all of the content, all the presentations that were made. But I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of what was said, particularly in the keynotes. But then there was one other really good presentation I felt was worth highlighting in terms of value. And I'll go through that a little bit as well. So really the graph component, you really should look into what graph can do for your business and what graph can help you achieve from an analytics perspective. But essentially, it was well described in the conference as moving from really tabular data to connected data. Really, what graph does is it provides the connections and the context, which is naturally important for next level business decisions and business analytics. Also, the summit was useful in reconfirming that digital transformation was core to all companies today. And the way they described it, I thought was pretty useful. So first of all, the definition of why you create digital transformation: one, to provide better customer experience, then to integrate efficiency and productivity. So those are the two key kind of sides of the same coin. One, to grow the business; the other, to reduce the overall cost of and efficiency and productivity of the business. And then third, to innovate goods, products, and services. And of course, that's a key part of the digital transformation journey. So, and then really they stated quite clearly that if you were going to go on this journey, there would needed to be a new generation of solutions to accelerate deployment. And we've seen that in the growth of the software and services space across this. And it is, of course, true, because we seem to have been discussing this digital transformation for quite a long time now. And I don't think necessarily all boards and companies have seen the value of that digital transformation at scale. So then you ask yourself, I guess, well, why graph? What is graph valuable? And why are we talking about technology realistically in the channel where we really want to focus on the transformation itself in the business? And I think it's an important technology to consider because it delivers some of those key benefits that we're looking for from a business perspective. So it can help you quickly and accurately make data connections. It can improve analytical performance. Importantly, because it provides that context onto the data, the connections in the data, it can uncover hidden connections within the data. It improves productivity. And it introduces flexibility and agility to deliver new business requirements quickly. And that's really one of the key challenges in this digital transformation when you think of it from an execution perspective. Is there's real challenges in dealing with that legacy platforming versus new technologies. And actually, I think Graph brings a lot in terms of being able to start to shift that model and be able to implement quickly. There were some really good contextual examples in the keynotes from JP Morgan and Jaguar Land Rover, and lots of discussion about performance and technical analytical elements, leading to the outcome that platform choice really matters. So making sure you choose the right graph platform is obviously critically important, particularly in terms of performance and scalability. But again, we're not going to go into that here. That's not why we're here. Ensure that your IT team are focused on it and that they can deliver the right platform. And then there was a really good presentation on entity resolution, graph, natural language processing, and LOD, or linked open data, from Mastech InfoTrellis. Now, I'd not come across Mastech InfoTrellis before, but I have to say the quality of the presentation was great. And, I really liked the fact that they didn't just talk about graph. They made it very practical in terms of what entity resolution really was. And they emphasized the importance of natural language processing and linked open data, which I've discussed on this channel a number of times before. But we really need to, from a digital analytics perspective, really connect much, much more in our enterprises to open data. Mastech InfoTrellis talked about smart automation, the use of digital twins. And you might not consider that digital twin in the context of understanding your customer, but I think it's important. It's actually something we were discussing back at ING a while back, which is really understanding the digital twin of a customer. So, think about what digital twins are. It's really the digital instantiation of a thing. And if that thing is a human being, then that digital twin is incredibly valuable when you really start to understand who the person is, who they are at home, at work, what we think and do, how we do things and why, and what might trigger those things or actions for us to take. And of course, it's important in many business scenarios for next best action or propensity to buy models. Realistically, delivery of a digital twin of a customer or the digital twin of an individual would be highly valuable for things like fraud prevention, anti-money laundering. But actually the data that you build into those models has much, much wider application than just anti-money laundering and fraud prevention. And really, if you're thinking about anti-money laundering, fraud prevention, you're involved in that analytical space, consider for a minute the data that you have and that you need in order to do transaction analysis, for instance, and what that could mean from a marketing perspective, or what that could mean from the perspective of understanding next best offer, next best action. It's a golden set of data interactions that really help support that much, much broader opportunity. And they also talk about knowledge graph, accelerated AI elements for data governance in their stack. And I definitely think it's worth taking a look at what these guys at Mastech InfoTrellis actually do. They seem to have very good models for KYC, AML, and fraud prevention, but actually go much, much further than that. And I'm sure this sort of data and this sort of way of managing that data could help really grow the business, as well as look at the risk side of the business as well. Okay, and moving on to the two articles. The first article is an article, actually both articles are from CDO Magazine this week. The first one is around an acquisition by Ahead. Ahead acquires a vertical trail. So, and it talks about this acquisition being for the purpose of increasing demand for analytics at scale. When you actually look at what Ahead does, Ahead is a cloud-based digital services provider, and Vertical Trail is a data and analytics consulting practice. And the acquisition of this second business adds tremendous value to the first. But when you really look at the way Ahead is structured and they look at digital transformation as a whole, first of all, their approach to digital transformation accepts that culture transformation is key and that communication lies at the heart of it. And I really like that approach from Ahead. So again, definitely worth taking a look at Ahead, and I'll include a link not only to the article but to Ahead's website in the description below, so as you can take a look at it. I think it's worth looking at their 5 digital imperatives, which sets out a reference architecture for digital transformation. And having a real good look at it, it really looks like a valuable construct to use to drive digital transformation. I think Ahead's approach is pretty sound, and clearly they have realized the need in their customer interactions to up their game around analytics, and that's why they have made this acquisition of Vertical Trail. On to the next article. I think this really summarizes the market and why you're seeing these acquisitions, like the Vertical Trail acquisition as an example. S&P Global acquires IHS Markit for $44 billion. Now, that's a huge acquisition, but the article takes a good angle in this respect, and I really like what they have done from an article perspective and from the analysis perspective. They've clearly told you that S&P Global is acquiring IHS Markit, and they've talked about some of the value and the value creation that exists within the acquisition. But actually, this article serves as a pretty good drill into the market as a whole, what's going on from an acquisition perspective. The acquisition potentially sets S&P up to be a competitor with Bloomberg and Refinitiv, that sort of size of organization. And it sets out the large-scale data land grab that's been happening and taking place over the last decade. Clearly, market data managers are generally not fans of this sort of acquisition. And mostly that's because, and having served as a market data, both as a vendor for Refinitiv back in the day when it was Reuters and Thomson Reuters, but also as a market data manager with inside an investment bank, I have a great deal of empathy for that position. Obviously, these big moves by large organizations reduce the amount of choice in the market. But there are many new startups coming up, and I'd really like to cover one or two of those in the coming weeks and months, and some that I'm very close to and actually use to find some of the content for this channel, there are still a lot of new entrants to this market that are worth taking note of. But I fully understand why market data managers express concern over this sort of acquisition. The article also points to an important point that we should all be aware of in our own companies when talking about digital and data transformation, and that is that the book values of data companies are nearly 3 times the market average. And if you can understand how your business can pivot towards being much more data centric, then the share valuation of your organization can also take some of that value. I'm not suggesting, unless you really pivot to be a data organization, that you're going to be 3 times higher than market average, but certainly you can increase the company's valuation by becoming much more of a data-focused organization. The article also covers the growth in the broader data marketplace, and it references companies like Darwex and Data Trade and Eagle Alpha, amongst others, who are sort of much more broad-based data aggregators who are bringing data from various different sources to bring them to market as data aggregators. And clearly those businesses are growing rapidly at the moment, and the article really looks at that broader marketplace. It's a really good article. It goes well beyond the headline and delves much more into the data market as a whole, and I recommend taking a look and reading it. Probably take you about 10-15 minutes to read it, but it's definitely well worth a look over at the cdomagazine.tech. I will include links to all of these articles in the description below. So that brings us to the end of the content. I hope it's been useful for you to understand what's been going on at the Graph AI conference and and these couple of articles from CDO Magazine. All links are below. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and let us know what you think of the content that we're bringing you. Like I say, over the next couple of weeks, we may have fewer videos, but keep an eye out for the ones that will be posted, and make sure that you get over to the website at dataleadrs.com and you sign up for the newsletter. Until next time, see you soon. Take care.